Everyone, and welcome to Adventures in Self-Publishing. I am so happy to have you here. Today we have a special guest, my dear friend Luna Joya, who is joining us for today's episode. And we are going to be talking about her latest work, what she's got on the back burner, what she's got coming up, and see what other secrets we can pull out of her. Thank you so very much, Luna, for joining me today. I do appreciate you taking the time out to come and join me from your busy schedule. So first of all, let's learn a little bit about you. Who are you? Where do you live? What do you write?
Well, my name's Luna. I just moved in, so I have empty bookshelves ready to fill, and I'm super excited about that. We moved from LA back to Orange County, so you can get more bang for your buck, which means I have bookshelf space because that's priorities. I write paranormal romance, mainly steamy witches. I write Hexy sexy. They are spicy. They are mysteries. I call it mysteries, magic, and smooching.
Ooh.
I know.
Awesome. So now you have a series out, and I recently bought the first book, but tell us a little bit about your first book. Show us that gorgeous cover, because I know you have a copy, and how many books are in the series, and when is the next book in the series coming?
So the series is complete. It's got 5 books out. Yay! But there's a spinoff series. So you're right. It's complete, but it's not complete. I have The Tides of Time, which is the one you read. So this is Cammie and Sam. It is the introduction to, this is the first books. So this is the introduction to the witch sisters and Sisterhood, which is, of course, female power, and it's a very feminine energy, and there's no putting down of women. The sister energy is extremely strong. And this one touches on what I actually do for real life, which is I'm a prosecutor, and I work with, or I have worked with in the past, lots of victims of family violence. So that's a near and dear thing to my heart. And I loved the women who would read it who haven't participated or known or observed family violence, who would say, I don't get it. And I'm like, the gaslighting. So if that is a trigger, skip that one and go straight to Magic Touch, which is the second one, which is somewhere around here. It's a super hot cover. Let me grab it. It's got Delia and Mark.
Ooh, just a side note, if you haven't read her book Tides, you definitely need to get it. It is steamy and spicy and delicious.
Thank you. And it's the intro to the sisters, but this is the intro to the team. So this is Delia, the less than sunshine heroine, and her sweet agent who doesn't know that magic exists.
Ooh, I cannot wait. Yes, I need to get these books. I need to get all of them. That is going to be my reward for finishing my current work in progress is going to be getting the next book. That's my reward.
That one's Enemies to Lovers. And then book 3 is Fated Mates or Forbidden Lovers with a siren and her sniper. I know. She's a mess, but she's a lot of fun. And he's super hot because that's what I specialize in, is super hot broken heroes.
Oh, I
book
love it.
4 is Second Chance Romance. She's a single mom, and I wrote a kid in this book. And I was told I did an excellent job. But I also swore I'd never do it again, which I'm breaking my own rule soon. And then the last one's Friends to Lovers with one bed.
And yes, they all have one bed in them. And if you were noticing, they all have red dresses. So what is the significance of the red dresses?
You have to read the last one. They wear the red, except for the siren who wears black all the time.
Okay. Definitely gonna have to read that one because I am dying to know what the red dresses are. I mean,
and my small press loves me enough that they totally went with it when I said, I promise there's a reason for the red dresses. And they said, cool, but we may be redoing the covers. So if anyone wants these covers, they're going to have to get them soon.
Awesome. That's exciting.
A secret.
Shh, everyone. Shh.
Not good at spoilers. I just leak. I'm just like, what?
Hey, that's
Spoiler.
okay. I love I love it. I love it. So what about the spin-off? Now you started working on your the spin-off series from this one. So what's that one about? What's that one like? Is it still going to be the spicy, you know, Hexy,
I don't
Smoochie?
write less than 5 spice dark romance. I can't help it. What does Indie Tell magazine call it? 5 tea kettles. I love them when they do their reviews. They're like, it's 5 tea kettles steam. Um, the Wicked series, which of course will be one bed and spicy, is a spinoff of this one. So you'll see some of the same characters, except it's more the morally gray and the villains. So it's a redemption series.
Oh, oh, and when is the first book in this one coming?
July.
And how many books in this in the Wicked series?
Just 3. I mean, I'm balancing 2 worlds. It may be 3 this year, because I've got a different one coming out in September that's from a different world.
Oh, okay. Now you cannot drop a bomb like that and not explain. Now what's come on? Now, what's this that's coming out in September? Different world? Hmm?
So it's called the Deity Daughters. It's the immortal Furies have daughters because magic has come back. It's slightly in the future. If you were looking at this world, it would be in the future of this world. And
Okay.
they all are in Syndicate City, which is all about roller derby and deity daughters, badass women. And then it comes down to their shifter lovers, because of course you need fated mate shifter lovers.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So now your Tide book was fairly long. It was I think it was, what was it, close to 100K, I think, or around 100K. Are all of the books around that length, or are there shorter ones, or?
So everything in the Legacy series, all of my paranormal wanted 95K. That's fine. That's great. Wicked will be around 95K because it's the same spinoff. The Furies will be shorter. So How to Date a Fury, I just finished, and that one comes in around 60K. And that's
Okay.
with an imprint for a shorter book series, with my same publisher.
Ooh, awesome. So now you and I have had a chance to chat, and I do know that you are working on a super secret project. So how can people keep up on finding out details on this super secret project that you've got on the go?
Well, it's because I haven't even gotten into it very far. I have a friend named Amelia Foster who writes cowboy romance, which is not my jam usually, but she's so good that I can't help it. And she's an indie author like yourself. And we touch and tag base on certain things. Like last night, she said, this blurb's driving me nuts,
Yeah,
because to write back cover for your own book is just insane.
it
So I
is.
said, hand it here, and here you go. And then we swap out things like that. And she said, I really need you to try to do an indie. I think you'd be good with it. And I thought, well, let's try. I am breaking my rule. I did not plot the series. I did not plot every single plot point, which I need that. I'm a plotter. So I am actually pantsing it some. And while I know the basic story structure and I know the signposts, and I know the characters because they've spoken well and truly to me, it's still a very it's a very scary project when you get into something and you're like, I'm not sure what happens next, and I'm such a plotter, and then it just happens organically.
Oh, and that's the thing is I have to tip my hat to you, because I plot. I will plot out everything. I will go like I will
Mm-hmm.
do all of the plotting. I get into it and I hit about chapter 3-ish, and the characters look at me and go, ha 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 ha, you think we're gonna do what you want? No, 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 no.
Oh no.
And away they go. And by that time, it's usually really hard for me to rein them in, because then it's just because it flows. And I am trying to learn how to plot successfully to keep to that roadmap. It's very difficult, I'll be honest with you. So bravo.
I think it's because I'm a lawyer. If you walk into a romance conference, there's so many lawyers, and I think it's because we're used to writing formulaic. You have to do this, you have to do that. And when we get into a story, we go, oh, I know how to do this. I can break it down into pieces and it's like a puzzle. And then I can infuse it with all this passion and chemistry. And then it becomes like a recipe.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not good at recipes either. I'm good at reading them. I'm good at, baking and cooking with them. Not right.
You're good at researching the history of them.
Yes, I am. I am. I just actually did a bunch of research on different types of cheese in ancient Rome.
I knew this would tie in.
So, and it was hilarious. It was hilarious to find this because, you think you know everything about cheese. It's such a commonplace thing, but no, no, no.
But you will find the minutia.
Yes,
I know you.
Yes. I like to get the little known details and stick them in.
Because people don't know that we're friends and that we've had that talk before where I'm like, okay, we're going to stick to a plan and an author career, and we're going to have a career plan and one pen name, and we're going to stay in our lane.
Uh-huh. How well is that working out?
I don't know. You still talk to me.
Actually, no, I totally appreciate it because I definitely need to streamline. Now you're you're not doing what I did, which is just write standalones and standalones and standalones and standalones in any genre or any, whatever it is, tickles your fancy. You're kind of sticking to the same lane, same genre. Which is brilliant. I wish I'd known when I first started to do that, but I didn't. So now I have to find myself here. What was the influence or the catalyst to picking your genre and picking your what book you want and what tropes you want to write in? What made you pick everything?
So I start with, what can you write 10 to 20 books on and not hate it? What do you read? What do you love? And I love magical romance. I love paranormal stuff. When I first picked up a Laurel K. Hamilton back before everything went crazy and she started screwing everything, man, I loved that stuff. And I have been an avid reader for years and years. And I don't know if we've talked about this, but when I was in my 20s, I wrote and I got an agent and I was super excited, but they wanted dark stuff. And I was like, not dark romance, dark stuff. And I thought, I'll be doing that forever. I write dark romance, I write mysteries, but there's always a happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer in that. And I don't think I can write anything that's not romance. And while contemporary is great, I love my magic. I love my world building. And it's so much fun.
It is. So, for our listeners here, I tend to write deep point of view, which basically means that my characters, the reader knows what my character knows. So if my character doesn't know a specific detail, the reader isn't going to know that detail. So from your standpoint, do you think that you need to give those extra world building details to make it make sense? Or are you more of the school of thought where, okay, well, I want my reader to experience what the character is experiencing, and that means only knowing what they know?
I like to do the immersion theory, and I've actually done it more strongly in these newer series. The Legacy series and its spinoffs are all third person, and now I'm playing in first person,
Okay.
Which is a whole new world.
Mm-hmm.
It's super fun because I get to be an immortal fury and know the things that an immortal fury would not know or would know. But I have a brand new fury. She's just been made a fury. She has she has wings. How do they work? She's a klutz. How am I supposed to skate? So it's a nightmarish point of view from her point of view, because she just got killed and brought back as a fury. And how does this work?
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
we learn as she learns. And
Awesome.
in the Legacy series, not to give any spoilers, but Sam doesn't know that there's witches.
So, and for me, I'm a huge fan of your work. I'm a huge fan. I mean, you've got me, the Tides has just got me hooked. So like I said, the next one is my reward for finishing my work in progress, because I like to reward myself. So I love that as I'm reading, I'm not along for the ride in the sense where I'm not a passenger. I'm there. I'm in the moment. There's, there's no separation. It's like boom, the first page, the first 2 lines, and immediately it's like, okay, no, the world can fall down around me. I'm here.
But that's why we read, is that's why I read, is to escape the real world. And that's what I want to give my readers as well, because that's what I take from all the authors I love.
Yep. So how many books do you read in a month?
So I have a long commute and I have audiobooks, and I reward myself with audiobooks. So I was really lucky, but I don't listen to my own audiobooks because that's just torture. I was really lucky. I got 3 of my books done by my press as an audiobook, and a phenomenal narrator. And I listened to the first few minutes and I was like, good job. And then I turned it off. And people wrote and said, I love it. But I listen to, you name it, on the way to work and back. I have Kindle on my phone. I have paperbacks that are in boxes. I'm an avid reader. We don't have kids. My kid is the Rose, who is the baby throughout the series, because we couldn't have kids. So reading is my escape from a fairly stressful job.
Yes.
And I don't even keep up with how many books I read, because I probably read 4 at a time, if not more. Because I was that kid who always had 20 paperbacks shoved in her backpack and her locker and everywhere else.
Yep.
And now I have it on my phone and it's just right there and I can read it. When defense counsel ticks me off in court, sometimes you'll catch me reading romance underneath the table. I don't encourage that for efficiency. I'm usually reading case files, but there are times when you just need a moment.
Yes. That moment is incredibly important. How do you, now as for those of our listeners who are not aware, Luna and I have had many, many, many conversations about productivity and burnout, and not take a small slice of the pie, not the entire pie, and then the next pie, because I tend to do that, which usually means that 2 or 3 times out of the year I'm hitting that brick wall, and I'm just kind of like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to write. I don't want to read. I need a break. So this year, one of my goals was to avoid those situations, which means cutting back on my workload. What do you do when, because your workload in your day job is insane, is intense. I can't imagine what it would be like. And then to be writing as well. So what do you do to kind of keep your creative bucket full, without burning out and, just getting to that point where it's like, I don't need to do this. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit and just veg.
I think that there's several parts to that question. So we've had this conversation before, because I'm a big believer in time management and making time for you and making time for your passion. And while my writing is a business, because we are all business people, if you are small press especially, or indie, oh my God, you are an entrepreneur, and that's your business. And I understand that it is a business and you need to nurture it. I have a full-time job that I love, that I won't give up.
Yep.
So I have learned to take advantage of small times. If I have 10 minutes, I'm writing.
Yeah.
It's also my escape. I carry universes in my head, though, which is apparently not normal. And I didn't know that till recently. So it's not a big deal for me to open a document on my phone or on my laptop and just dive right in. And I'm usually writing 2 books at once, which is also a weird thing, apparently.
Mhm.
I didn't know that either, in 2 different worlds with 2 different POVs. Because the characters are so different that they don't cross over for me in my head. I do think you have to scale back. I think you have to focus on what's important. I think you have to focus on one genre, but that's just me. I'm not looking to go full time. I'm not even looking to go part time. I'm just doing it as a passion project.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I think you have to allow yourself time to veg, which I have problems with because I'm a super type A personality and I don't understand turning off the brain. But
Yeah.
I did sit down and watch The Witcher for like 2 days because Henry Cavill.
Yeah. I shut over. I run a group on Facebook called Serious Writers Haven, and up until December, we were doing a round table every week, which is for us was a round table. A round table was we would do a Zoom call and we would be covering topics on craft, on business, branding, you name it. And they're not short little 30-minute little.
No, they were
gatherings.
teaching sessions, and we had to talk about that.
Yes. And so I took a couple of weeks off in December. The first week was absolute torture because I kept trying to get back. I kept trying to work and then having to tell myself, no.
And it's hard.
It's very, very difficult. And then I think it was the last week before New Year's, over till about just January 2nd. I literally took those 7 days and I kind of sat down and I was just vegging. And I am a true crime lover. I watch Forensic Files. I watch, anything with crime and mystery. There's just something about it. I stumbled onto a program on Amazon Prime. I'm not going to give the name out, but I will just say it is absolutely phenomenal. It is about serial killers. And I watched both seasons, like back-to-back episodes, back-to-back for the enjoyment. And then I let it set for a couple of days, moved on to another series, come back to the first series with a notebook.
That sounds like work to me. I'm like, that's part of my job. I stay away from true crime. People are like, don't you love true crime? I'm like, no, I leave that at work.
Yeah. But then I'm like, I started to kind of take some notes, and then I'm like, this is not fun. So I'm like, okay, notebook aside, we'll just sit here and rewatch. We'll just rewatch and binge this show. And it was just so interesting to see the different aspects of everything. So I did get some downtime, and I did make some decisions. I've cut back on my roundtables. I'm only doing roundtables every other week as opposed to 4 roundtables a month, which, my gosh, because my schedule was insane.
You have a critique group too, so you're managing multiple groups.
Yes. And I am also hosting 2 podcasts. I'm hosting this one, the Adventures in Self-Publishing. I am also hosting the Writing Women podcast, which is a podcast it's actually for male authors to answer questions from a female's perspective on different aspects on how to write 3-dimensional realistic women in fiction. Which is rather interesting. And then I'm moderating the Writing Guys podcast as well. So I'm doing those 3 things. the critique groups, the Serious Writers Haven, and I finally said, I need to scale back. I can't, and so I've decided I'm doing a 6-day work week. I'm taking one day out of every week, and that is going to be my day to crochet, to read, to soak in the tub until the husband breaks down the door and goes, okay, the kid needs in here. You need to because I know I need to keep my bucket refilled. So I took your advice. I did scale back. I'm trying to. The other thing is I'm giving myself permission at work on my breaks to actually sit down and write, as opposed to, that expectation to chat with coworkers. So now if, I can sit there on my phone and write while I'm eating my lunch or having my coffee break or whatever. And it's amazing what I'm getting done. So I think it's really important to know your limits, set goals, set limits for yourself, because otherwise, it's like, no, I'm just going to keep adding on, and then you get burnout. We don't want
then
that.
You get burnout, and there's not much you can do for that except for take a rest.
Yes.
The twins, the Nagalski twins who did the Burnout book, where you have to physically complete the cycle of the stress cycle for the burnout to understand your body, to know where it's going.
Yep.
I'm a big believer in Becca Syme, and we've done this at Inkers Con because you and I have talked about this, that she's come and talked about how you've got to scale back.
Yep.
I just started a Facebook readers group. It's tiny. It's called Luna's Lovelies. But then I also have I stepped into the water by managing 15 authors in a paranormal romance, the Rock Stars group, which is awesome. It's got lots of members. And it was my chance because I like to organize things. And so it's easier for me to organize other people's parties and promote other people than it is for me to promote myself.
Yep.
Yeah. I love talking to other people and talking up their books and asking questions and helping with their blurbs and asking what I can help with their stuff. But then I had to put a limit on that too, because I wasn't getting any writing time.
Yep. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into, because we get so comfortable with it. We get so used to wanting to help others, to organize, to, and that's something as an indie that I am learning, that I need to step back. Yes, there's nothing wrong with helping others, and I'm still doing it. I'm still going and helping out and posting resources. But at some point I have to prioritize and say, okay, well, instead of promoting these 5 books, I'm gonna spend an hour promoting my book, and then I'll do those. And do you struggle with that as well? Because I know for me it's like, okay, well, hello, here's my book, please read it. Oh, hey, look, there's Luna's.
Yes. So it was easier for me to create a Rockstar group for everyone than for me to create because I thought, what will I talk about?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do newsletters because I enjoy newsletters, because I have global pen pals, and that's how I approach it. I love the fact I have people in Australia who write me, and I'm like, this is awesome. Let me send you some swag. I'm in Australia. It's fine. I have a pen pal. And that's kind of we're indies. We're small. That's how we work. But I had to take a huge step back last year because I got into a slump where I couldn't read and I couldn't focus, and I had quit believing in my writing, and it got really bad, which is never a good place to be. So I took a step back and thought, where do I not want to invest my time? Instagram, Twitter, those had to be cut back. Now, I do love me some TikTok. I can lose myself on book talk like you wouldn't believe, because I just love it, because it's the ADHD, and it goes fast, and my brain can handle it. Facebook, book talk. That's about all I do.
Yeah.
I don't do much of that anymore. And then I take time to write, but I also had to learn what was your peak productivity time. And I'm physically, I have fibromyalgia and I have chronic issues and neurology issues because I died when I was 28 and came back. So I'm basically a zombie with steel body parts. So I know that in the mornings I can't physically do anything, but I can get up an hour before work while I stretch and try to remember I'm a person and get 300, 400 words. And that's just fine.
Yep. That's 300 or 400 words more than what you had the day before.
Or I do a brain dump of this is everything that's going into this next scene, or this is everything you need to write in this part.
Do you ever do, now one of the things that had been suggested from one of my gurus that I follow on in the industry, one of them had said, you know, hey, instead of typing out the story, why don't you try dictation? Now, I've tried dictation. I'm still struggling with it. They said it can take a month or so to actually get into making it work. I keep trying it, but I have this tendency to be a motor mouth. So it's really difficult for me to train software to actually be able to understand what I am saying unless I slow it down.
Motor mouth? You?
I know. So
that's like saying you have an accent.
Do I?
Everyone has an accent.
But yeah, it's really something that I've been struggling with. But do you ever use dictation? Do you ever feel that it's beneficial to like a talk to text type deal, like a Google Speech or Dragon or whatever it is, any of those programs that are out there where you can tell the story rather than type the story?
I tell the plot, not the story, if that makes any sense. So when I'm plotting or doing character development, and I will have great things that come up from characters that I'm like, why didn't I know that? Why didn't you tell me that? When were you going to tell me? Well, I told you now. I stop because I'm scared. I don't know why. Maybe fibromyalgia fog, that I'll lose it.
Yeah.
And I'll just dictate it into the Apple app, and then I'll come back and be like, oh, look at all these pretty notes. I have not found dictation successful for me yet, just because my brain is so hardwired to visitor, don't you?
Okay. Oh, 1 second here. We're just having a bit of a problem. The dog moved my thingy. So he kind of bumped things around, and of course static electricity, and as soon as he does that, everything kind of shifts on me, and then I lose things. So, but yeah.
Your dog is bigger than 2 pounds.
That's Sam. That's the bigger dog. He's about 65, 70 pounds.
So he's 35 tiny editors.
Yes. The other one is right here. Hang on, and I will grab him. This is Gizzy.
Oh,
this
so cute.
This is my muse. This is my he's the one that keeps me firmly in the chair because he usually sits on my lap. I
have one of those.
So he's kind of like my muse, my editor, my writing partner, if you will. I love him to pieces. He's getting old though. He's 12. He'll be 13 this year, actually. So
we think my baby's 10. We're not sure because he's a rescue, but we think he's 10.
They're so handy. Do you ever now, and I've done this a couple of times myself, do you ever put Tiny Editor into any of your books?
So I have familiars in all of the books. I have Bogart that's in the first, it's not a familiar. And the stickers of the familiars are such popular swag. I have Tiny Editor stickers. I have Double P is the second familiar. Finn is very popular. He's the Finnick Fox. But if you look up fennec foxes, or if you've ever had a friend who had a fennec fox, yes, they're wild. No, they should not be domesticated, but they're about tiny editor size. And Finn has some very tiny editor qualities. But the funny thing is that Finn and Rose, the baby, as a grown-up, were actually the first characters I ever came up with. So my editor figured out, she was like, you have a second generation. I went, yeah, this is all prequel. Yeah. Are you ever going to give it to anyone? I don't know. Okay.
It's so much fun to do that, though, to create those, those characters that are second generation when they appear in the book. So what's the most challenging thing about going indie, and what do you anticipate to be the most rewarding part about going indie?
So I've actually been spoiled. We've talked about this. I have a press that spoils me, and they are wonderful. But I want to play with marketing, and they will support me in going indie, which is amazing, because how many presses will be like, cool, you want to be hybrid? That's awesome. You want to work on something that's completely random and not in our wheelhouse? Great. Do what you want. My biggest fear is I rely on my editors. One has seen the entire 5-book series. One is new, and I love her, and I've already worked with her. I have editors and I have book designers, but it's coordination. And I honestly don't have a ton of time. So it's coordinating all that, getting it together, and I suck at marketing myself. So those are my fears. Because I don't market myself very well. And I get that. I'm working on my ads. I'm working on marketing. I work on TikTok, which is the most fun thing to work on, because I love book talk. But getting word out there can be really hard.
Yeah.
I tease people, I've got 5 readers, and you're one of them. I got 5 readers, and growing that readership is, and I'm sure there's more than 5, because I have more than 5 that write me back on my newsletter, but it's just a challenge. And then the most rewarding thing is to know I don't have to worry about writing to market. I tend to write tropes. I tend to write to market just because that's what I love to read.
Yep.
But I don't have to.
Yep.
And it's cool to have design. Well, I have cover design stuff right now with my press, but it's cool to have something that's your own, and your own back matter, and your own things to play with.
Yep. I would agree. That is one of the biggest things about going indie that I love, is having that control, that ability to play.
And if I want an audiobook, I can do that. If I want a German translation, I can do that. If I want Amazon ads, I can play with that. I don't have to. I can play with my pricing. It's the fear is the setup, and the fact that over 2,600 people press play at KDP. Here we go with self-publishing every day. There's just a huge amount of self-publishing. And I think that has really done 2 things. One, there are people who think that people who self-publish are not as qualified still as traditional publishers, which is crap.
Yeah,
which is crap. And 2, it's given indie pubs and small presses so much power that I think it's a wonderful tool. We've got more transparency. We've got more gateways. When I started writing, you had to send, okay, I'm really old. You had to send a self-addressed stamped envelope if you wanted to hear from somebody, and you had to mail the manuscript, and it was all ruled by a few publishers, and you had to get an agent, and you didn't have choices.
Yep.
And now you do.
Yep. Yep.
And now you have indies who are rocking. Katie Robert, who I just adore, contemporary erotic and spicy romance, and she has Kickstarter campaigns, and it's amazing what she does. And I love watching Willow Winters and Molly O'Hare, and I just dig it.
It's like going to Vegas. Honestly, it's just, there's so much excitement. There's such a vibe to it. Is being indie a lot of work? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
In my experience with traditional publishing, with the houses that I've been part of, uh, the expectation is that the author is doing between 80 and 90% of the marketing anyways, which really doesn't balance out. Now coming from the standpoint of having a publishing house at one point myself, I understand why it's there. It's because as a publisher, you are promoting the entire library that you have, the back library included. So you don't have a lot of time, especially if you're a small press, to promote one specific author, unless that author is making you huge dollars. And then, you're more likely to be engaging and actually doing physical marketing. But for the most part, I would say 99.9% of the time, it's simply because they're trying to market their entire library. They do not have the capacity to do one specific author. So it makes it, even as a hybrid author, I've had to learn the ins and the outs and that sort of thing when it comes to marketing. And not everything works. I mean, I've tried things and they just haven't worked. But, do you find, or do you feel that with your press, because it sounds like you have an amazing press, do you find that you are responsible for more of the marketing aspect, or do you find that they're doing more to market you than you're doing to market you?
No one can market your book like you can, ever, just ever. I mean,
Yeah.
my small press is different because we have a very, I don't want to say family because that's not the right word, but we have a very coherent, cohesive, supportive group, which is a small press that came out of an indie mindset. And that we've got leaders who believe in that whole, we support each other. And if you don't want to support each other, maybe this isn't a good fit for you.
Yeah.
We tend to support and market each other, which is nice, especially when I came into this going, I don't know how to tell you what my book's about. I mean, now I can tell you, sure, it's steamy witch romance and it's sisters and they're taking on the world and they're tearing down the patriarchy. But that as a debut author is a lot. And learning BookBub and Facebook ads and Amazon ads and all the social media platforms and all the promos and when to stack them and how to stack them and things that'll fail and things that might work. I mean, I go to IndieCon and I used to be a member of RWA before it became an insane place to be. But I'm always taking classes because you and I are both in your skills have to evolve, and it's not craft, it's marketing, it's the different approaches. How do you get there? But it's also, how do you find happiness doing it?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's part of it. Now, I have heard from a number of authors in different groups that I've talked to, and a lot of them come up and they say the same thing. I have a really hard time promoting my work. It's really easy to promote someone else's because you're talking someone else's book up. But when it comes to my own stuff, it's really difficult. I find it extremely stressful. And I think part of it is because when we start talking about ourselves, when we start promoting ourselves, whether we realize it or not, we kind of there's something that triggers in our brains and our minds that says, no, that's just being narcissistic. That's just being selfish. You don't sit and talk about yourself all the time. You gotta listen and that sort of thing, which is great. But when it's a business, and it's different. So do you feel, now I know that you have your full-time job, which you will never give up, and your books are kind of your side hustle, but do you feel that even as a side hustle that you need to be aware and engaged in that mindset of this is a business. I have to make sales because I'm selling a product. I have to be, I have to be engaging. Or is it just, do you find that that's easier, or is it more difficult, or is that a mindset that you have?
I think of it as a brand. I'm not selling a book that's a book baby. I've never understood that mindset because it's always been a product.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I enjoy my characters, and I love being able to talk to readers who love the characters, but it is a brand. And you have to be able to adapt your brand, and you have to be able to sell your brand. My brand is magic, mystery, and smooching, and it is Hexy sexy. And there are people that are uncomfortable with that, and that's fine. They're not my readers.
Yeah.
You go out and you find your readers, and when you find comp authors, you can talk about their books, and they'll sometimes talk about your books. And I have found with groups like my Paranormal Romance Rock Stars, where there's 15 of you, a lot of times a few of you are fans of each other, and you can talk about each other's books, but you need to take time on your day to be like, hey, I have books out. I have books coming out. I have a short story out. I have a newsletter. You have to still maintain that. If you can't promote yourself, because yes, it's a healthy dose of narcissism, you can at least promote that brand.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's something that's incredibly important for any author to be aware of, whether you're a hobbyist or whether it's a career decision. So, yeah.
But it shapes more than just your marketing plan, because if it's not in my brand, I'm not writing it.
Yeah.
It has to stick to my brand, and it has to meet reader expectations.
Yeah.
So I think if you come at it from the angle of, and we won't even get into money, because that's this whole other psychology that I work with young authors about, their relationships with money and their relationships with thinking they can be on a New York Times bestseller list. And I love them because they come in so shy, shiny and starry-eyed, and I'm like, that's so adorable. Yeah, by the time you sign your last contract, you're like, oh yeah, I signed a contract, or I have a plethora of, these are my editors that I'll use, and these are my cover designers, and I have this all in place. Because whether it's a side hustle or it's a full-time dream, if you don't build it as a brand from every word, everything you do, every appearance you make, every post you say, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Yes. So when you were starting out and you were coming up with the idea for your brand, did you find it easy to kind of recognize your brand, or was it something that kind of, you wrote one book and then you wrote the next book and then it was kind of like, oh wait, this is my brand, and you kind of built on it? Or was it something that you come out of the gate, 35 miles an hour, just charging down the backstretch? This is my brand. This is who I am.
You both know I'm a planner. I knew before I went in, it was a 5-book series. I didn't expect to, okay, here's the secret. Tides of Time was not meant to be a book. It was meant to be a 4-book series, and Tides of Time just kind of happened. So when I realized Tides of Time was going to happen, I sat down, wrote it. It won a bunch of awards, and I was like, that's cool. And then someone wanted to publish it, and I went, well, I wasn't planning on publishing that one. I was going to start with book 2. Well, is it on brand? Yeah. Can you market it? Maybe. Is it less marketable because it has less tropes? Yes. Is it a less marketable book based upon my marketing experience? Yes. But does it build on each other, and is it still part of a master plan? Sure. So I had planned around a brand from the beginning.
And I think that is awesome. It's amazing. I need to download your planning brain, because honestly,
well, how am I going to get anything done? And then, like I said, I died and came back. And once I came back, I was like, I've always wanted to be a writer. And I met my husband after, as a gift for coming back. I found my husband while I was still in a wheelchair. And then I told him, I've always wanted to be a writer. And he said, why aren't you? Because I do characters by Enneagram types. We've talked about that too, that I do personality typing, and I'm a 1 and a very let's help people, let's make the world better. He's a 6. Let's just go. Let's do the things. He's also, yeah.
That's familiar. And I think that's part of it. You can have all the drive in the world. You can have all of the, the rosy, starry-eyed, beliefs. But I think unless you sit down and actually plan it out, I don't think you're going to get to the level of success that you want. Which is one of the reasons why every year now I do a business plan according to Alessandra's questions. 3-question business plan, absolutely fantastic, because it really does hit home. It really makes you sit and think, and you have to focus on what your prime goals are. But
that's Alessandra Torres.
Yes.
The Anchors Con.
Anchors
for
Con.
those that don't know.
Yes, and Anchors Mini Con, who, for those who do not know, which is this month, which is probably going to be the best $30 that you are going to spend, because there is 4 amazing classes in it.
We both promote, but we don't get paid to. So this is just us.
Yes, this is just personal opinion. But yeah, Anchors Con last year was a game changer for me. I've been doing this. I've been in this industry for 14 years. And what I learned last year has completely broke down everything that I had built up, and really made me sit back and go, oh, I see what I have been doing. I have been sabotaging myself, literally, because I'm not doing series. I'm doing standalones. And
it's not sabotage. Let's just put that out there. Okay. You've been building a backlist. While it has not been the most coherently planned backlist, it is still a backlist.
It is.
Market that.
Yes, it is. It is. So it's a very uncohesive backlist, which is absolutely fantastic. And there's some really good books in there that I want to build off of. My Agents of Star series, I have 2 books that are already written in that, but I want to expand on that. But that's contemporary romance, romantic suspense, or thriller. So that one is kind of, I have the brilliant idea to do 5 more books in the series. So that means that I have to plot them out, plan them out, and that means they're not going to be coming out this year, because I'm shrinking my goals. Instead of me doing 12 books this year, I want to keep it to 4 max.
Oh gosh, that's just not, you slacker.
I know.
4 books.
I know.
You're lucky if I do 2.
Well,
but I do write big books.
The goal is to do 4, but out of that 4, 3 are going to be 80K plus, and 1 is going to be, I'm going to try and keep it between 30 and 40K. I'm going to try. I don't write shorts.
No, but that's okay. I just had a short story come out in a charity anthology, and it was an exercise in writing a short story.
Yeah.
And it had to be smoking hot, and it had to be holiday themed, and it had to be less than 7,000 words.
Yeah. Right now there's also talk. I'm also talking with my critique group on doing a anthology, which is not, it's a collection of works. It's not really an anthology in the sense of it's 4 or 5 stories all in one book. It's there's 3 of us. Each one of us is going to write 2 books in the series. We've got the world kind of built. We've got all of that. So we're talking about that. But yeah, I don't want to add more to my plate. The whole point is take more off the plate than put on the plate.
I was about to say that sounds like a different project to put on the plate.
It is. And I don't want to do it just yet. I have to focus on getting the book that my current work in progress finished, and then start on the next series, because I want to get the first book in the next series out this fall, and then go from there. But that one's going to be a little bit more tricky because I've got a bunch of research to do. I'm going to be researching the lairds in Scotland and in ancient times and all that lovely stuff. I'm not going quite back as far as Roman times with it, but it's 14th century, 13th, 14th century should do it. But it's I think that's really important. The other part is knowing your numbers, knowing, and I have been doing this, I've been studying this, is knowing what the numbers are, what your sales are, what your estimated sales are, what your projections are, what you're projected to spend on advertising. All of these things, having those numbers in front of you is really important, I think, because if you don't know those numbers, then how can you judge your success? If you don't have a clue how much you've made in the year, and you're sitting there going, well, I haven't made any money, but the reality is you've made 15 grand in that year on sales, which, I mean, there are authors that are making that a month, but if you're thinking you've made like $500 and then instead you've made $15,000, if you don't have the numbers, how are you going to know, right? So I think having your numbers is incredibly important. Now, traditionally published is interesting because it's really hard to get those numbers, because publishers don't always give you those numbers at the end of every month. They might give them to you every
3 months.
3 months.
Every 3 months.
Yeah.
And you know that's coming, and I work around that. So here's some of the benefits of going with my small press. I got in Publishers Weekly by book 2.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And I've always been in Detail magazine, and I've been very fortunate that I have gotten, knock on wood, really, really good reviews from Publishers Weekly and in Detail. That's not always the case. Just because your publisher gets in there doesn't mean you get a good review.
Yeah.
I've been super lucky, and I'm probably cursing myself, so I'm looking for wood to knock on. And some salt to throw, and my kitchen witch is coming fully online. But I've been really lucky with that. And I've been very lucky that I've had bloggers who were interested in me, who went and found other people in my press, and that they were big on that. But you don't get numbers. And if you do get numbers, you have to learn to extrapolate rankings, which doesn't work. People say it does work, but it doesn't work, because what it comes down to is not how you rank in things. It's nice, but bank is where it's at, not rank.
Yeah. And
there's an author who teaches a bank over rank course, and I can't remember her name. She's wonderful, and it'll come to me later.
And I will make a note as soon as she tells me what that is. I will make a note in the description box.
But we're both in classes all the time. Yes. I mean, we're both constantly in different classes, and most of my classes these days, I did a good 3 years at least of intensive craft classes where I picked apart everything I wrote, and I still do it every time I do a draft. But then I switched to author life questions and time management classes and burnout classes and marketing classes, to the point that you have to be able to balance both. And you are going to feel like, as an indie author, that you have 10 plates in the air and 2 hands to balance them with. And I don't know how many times I've felt like that. And you've got to figure out where you're. I don't want to sound too woo-woo, because I am kind of woo-woo. But where's your joy?
Yep. Yes, yes, yes. Joy is a huge part of it. I've had
And it,
I've had people that have said, "Oh, well, and this is kind of a joy killer for me anyways. It's like, "Oh, well, um you if you can do it, I can do it. I'm smart too." Or uh, you know, um your writing is exhausting. I read your book, and I started reading it, but there's so many layers I couldn't catch every thread that was going on, and I put it down and then I picked it back up and I had to go back 2 chapters to pick up what I missed because I forgot something that was in chapter such and such, and I was back and I was way down in chapter so and so. And that can take a lot of joy out of it. But I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think for me at least, that is part of the joy, making a story that is the nuances and the subtext is not sitting there glowing in neon green. It's, you have to be looking for it, because otherwise you're going to miss it. Whether it's a nuance on a character's personality, maybe it's something that they say, maybe it's something that they do. Do you ever find that those nuances that maybe that are there sometimes get missed by your readers?
so I'm going to take your, because I always play devil's advocate, and I'm a therapist in disguise because I work with kids. I'm going to take your statement and take it down into two parts. One,
Okay.
reviews are for readers. They're
Yes.
not for us, and they never will be for us. If you can learn something from it, then it's great. But reviews are for readers, and I don't mess with my reader reviews because I'm just so happy to get one.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't respond except thank you for leaving a review. I appreciate it. That's my personal opinion. I write nuances, but I write nuances because I love to thread lots of different things together and braid a story. And I like to drop hints into book 1 that won't come out until book 5 of what's going on. And my editor has fun with it because she was like, I wondered why Mina was playing with a lighter in book 1. And I went, well, Mina gets a book in book 5. You'll find out then. And she goes, I wondered where it came from. And I went, well, if you had subscribed to my newsletter, you'd know where it came from because it's a free short story that comes with the newsletter, which is always fun.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've threaded it through it. But that is a personal joy. And you can't let the reviews mess with your brain, because reviews are for readers. They're not for us. And then the other part of that, I'm going to completely forget what I said, but I said there's 2 parts. So 1, reviews are for readers. And 2, I'm a firm believer that one of the thieves of joy is looking on somebody else's page and thinking, I wish I had gotten that book buff feature deal, or I wish I had gotten that massive book deal with the translation rights. And I'm to the point where I flip it because I'm kind of a glass half full. And I think, well, if they could do it, there's a chance I could do it.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. So go you, forge a path, and let me come right behind you.
I'm working on it. That's something else that is kind of interesting now, and I'm sure that you've heard that there's been a lot of discussion from authors who are having their accounts suspended and closed down, and there's been a lot of discussion on this. Now, the information that I'm getting is it's all related to blurbs and keywords in the blurbs and your categories, and picking the wrong categories just because you want to get into a smaller category where you have a better chance of making a really good ranking, get to that number 1 bestseller so you can have that little golden flag. What what can, as a new author, what would be your biggest piece of advice when it comes to looking at your blurbs, your keywords, your categories, looking at the broader picture? Because I think that there is a lot of confusion around this, and this is an issue that is ongoing. Amazon themselves have said that yes, they are cracking down because there's people that are misusing they're playing the system, which doesn't work for doesn't work for us that are indies, doesn't work for any author really, because it ultimately comes back and hurts the industry. But what would you say to a new author who is looking at getting into this industry amid all of the talk of Amazon suspending accounts and these other things that are happening today? Because it is a very, I won't say it's a cutthroat industry, because in my mind it's not. There are enough readers to go around. I don't read just one author. I am prolific. I read a lot of different authors. I read a lot of different genres. I mean, I read Louis L'Amour and Cresley Cole and Luna Joya, and so I mean, they're all different. So, what would be your advice for a new author stepping into the arena at this point?
So it's not a cutthroat industry unless you make it a cutthroat industry. And the Amazon issues that are up right now are coming from various sources, and we usually hear fourth or fifth hands, because as a lawyer, we're not going to talk about things that are going on in an appeal where there are civil rights or your right to completely be active in your business. So we don't always get the firsthand knowledge of what's going on. I would tell a young author, and I always tell young authors this: we have this dream of being, in a brick and mortar store, to have your stuff on Walmart shelves and to be, one of the big authors. And it's not a sprint. It is for some people, and that's amazing that they can go in one book and they're done. But for the rest of us, it's a marathon. You can have 100 books out and no one's ever heard of you, except for your core readers who are making your living.
Yep.
So my advice is always write what you love, write what you can stick with, tend to your reputation, the same as I tell young lawyers that your reputation will be there forever. And that you can't plan for things that you can't control. So if Apple changes its newsletter open rates, for example, and you can't tell what your open rate is, or you can't tell who clicked what, or if Amazon changes things with their platform, you can't control that.
Yep.
So focus on what you can.
Yep.
Find your joy. I keep teaching the same things. And I know Joya is just, because we used it as a misspelling for my actual last name, which is Italian for joy. Find your joy, find your market, stick to your page, work hard, don't work yourself to death, and keep at your marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah, I think a lot, and even authors that have been in the industry for a long time that haven't seen success or that are struggling really need to hear that. That is absolutely amazing advice, and it resonates because, like I say, I think a lot of us need to hear it. We go through the dark patches. Everybody does. Last year I was at a point where I was actually tempted to just to turn everything off and stop doing it all, because I was struggling mentally. I was struggling trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, because I wasn't seeing sales and I wasn't seeing anything, and I'm trying to figure this out. And I've changed my blurbs on my books, I think 6 times since Chains of Rome came out, for example. I think I've changed that blurb 4 or 5 times. And so I think that really resonates, because if you find your joy and you stop looking at the author next to you, and just focus on what you are doing. You are, and I firmly believe this, we are our own worst enemy when it comes to that FOMO moment, that oh my God, I'm going to miss out on being a bestseller. I'm going to miss out on this opportunity or that opportunity. I have known authors that were incredibly talented. They would write one or two books. They didn't make it big. They didn't make, they weren't making, $5,000 a month. And so they quit. They quit after two books. And it's like, well, you got to push. Sometimes you got to push yourself to push through that negative energy and look for the positive energy in your situation. And a support network is so important. I firmly believe that having other authors in my circle, such as yourself and Carolyn and a couple of other authors that I count as really close, dear friends, without having them in my circle and in my corner, I honestly think that I would be doing the same thing that I was doing 2 years ago, which is just basically write a book, move on, write this book, move on, submit it, get it published, and that was it. I wasn't doing promo. I wasn't doing marketing. I wasn't, engaging with anybody. Am I paying for it now? Yeah, because I'm rebuilding my career, because I had to go through that process and learn how to find the joy and find the ability to say, okay, I need to figure this out. And I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, I don't say it enough, but I appreciate you so much.
How many times do I tell you you've got to celebrate?
Yes, that's just it. It's celebrate the small things, and you keep saying that to me, and it's like, so that reminder is so huge. It has such an impact because, like I said, everybody goes through those dark patches, and then to have someone who says, celebrate the little things. It's absolutely amazing.
But it's not even the dark patches. It's if we write the end and we think, oh, I've got to do the next thing. I've got to do the next project. I've got to start the next plot. And I didn't slow down to celebrate. I told you I started when I was in my 20s and I died and came back. I broke my skull on a motorcycle accident because a guy ran over me. And I think it taught me that you have to stop and be happy with what you've got because, reincarnation beliefs aside, you get one try, you get one chance at this. And when I came back, I was like, I'm not writing dark. I'm writing happily ever after. And I'm not going to push myself. I want one book published. And that's what I wanted the whole time. I wanted my book on one person's shelf I didn't know. And that's all I wanted was one book out. And now I've got 5 out and I get pictures of them on shelves in Australia and England and all over. And it's just I think it's just so amazing.
Yep. It is. And it's almost indescribable. So for our listeners, do not give up. Do not give up on the dream because like Luna said, it is not a sprint. It is a marathon. You need to prepare for the marathon. Don't chase that elusive trope because I can guarantee you, if you're chasing a trend, not a trope, but if you're chasing a trend, I can guarantee you by the time you get your book written and released, even as an indie, you are probably coming out on the opposite side of that trend and your book it's not going to be up here with the rest of the books in that trend. It's going to be down here at the bottom because they're very quick. They rise quickly and then they drop, they fall off. And so finding that evergreen genre that you are happy in is huge. For me, it's historicals. I realized honestly that 90% of what I write has history. There's a historical feel to it. Whether it's dialogue, whether it's terminology, and I found this out when I was writing A Haunted Passion. I was writing along, and my editor critique partner, she's like, "This doesn't sound like this character. He's very formal. He's very much this sounds too historical." And it's like, yep. It's because that historical draws me in. I love history. I am such a huge history buff that I just, it's like history and true crime. Ooh, maybe I can combine them.
That's what I was just thinking. Perhaps you should try.
I might.
Because you've seen mine. The first two books are historical cold cases, and of course, I would never write a real murder because that would be just bad. But I could tell you that I've studied lots of LA history, and I know most of the murders that have happened in LA history, especially in the 30s and 40s, because I'm a history buff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it bleeds through into the writing every time, and you can tell if somebody is passionate about it and if you've got the research done.
Yes. Yes.
Without telling me everything you researched, because I don't care.
Yeah, no, I keep a list of the books that my resource books, my resource sites. I keep a list of all of that. But I think it's absolutely hilarious that I have spent time researching, for example, my master's mistress, which is Vikings and Celts, set in 8th century Ireland. I spent probably 2 years researching both the Vikings and the Celts. I mean, I was talking to professors in universities and it was really funny because I had someone come up to me and say, well, they didn't do this way. They didn't call these people this. And I'm like, okay, well, what did they call them? And they're trying to explain to me, and it's like, you're watching too many Hollywood movies because Hollywood doesn't get the details right 100% of the time. I can think of a movie right now where the historical inaccuracies are so huge that anyone who's ever studied that time period or who has any love for that country and researching the history of that country can see.
Braveheart.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And Braveheart.
Yep.
Oh my God, the Netflix Christmas special. Everybody was so excited about Christmas in the castle. And I couldn't take the Scottish accent, which was not a Scottish accent. I'm not sure what it was.
It was not.
But I do love me some Hallmark. I love the formula stuff, but yeah, there are times when you're like, do you hate Scotland? Because there's not a castle and there's not an actual Scottish person in this movie.
Yeah. Yep. I love Hallmark movies. I don't love the Hallmark brand. The blow up that they had a couple of years ago about the LGBTQ community, that was kind of sort of like over a commercial. It was over a commercial. It was really stupid, but it was over a commercial. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll wait for those movies to come onto a different channel. I'll watch them on a different channel, but I'm not going to watch them on that channel because, yeah, no. But they have it's very formulaic, and I think that was for me. I misinterpreted writing to market to writing to formula years ago, and I mean, this was before I submitted anything to a publisher, but I think I was still in high school, and I had been talking to someone, and we had been talking about publishing, and they said, well, you're never going to get published because it's a bunch of old fuddy-duddy men sitting in a room around a big table writing these romance books for Harlequin. That's what they said. I'm like, okay, that's a little odd, but okay, we'll go with it. And then I started digging around it, and yeah, there are certain things that are very formulaic about Harlequin books. I'm not much of a fan of Harlequin. I grew up on them. I loved them for years, but once I started writing and I submitted to them a few times, and I think I've submitted to them 4 or 5 times, and every single time I get rejected. I don't follow their formula.
But they're not a formula. They're a beat sheet.
Yeah.
And it is a very specific, I love Harlequin. I haven't submitted, I would be rejected, but it is a very specific beat sheet.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't know, I mean, we talked about the fact that lawyers and we tend to write to a very specific beat sheet. And I think that's part of why I'm a planner. And I've become more of a beat sheet person in my own head. And God loves Save the Cat because that's just wonderful. But I end up taking all the different heart breathings and James Scott Bell and all the different things I've learned. And I've studied so many, just cramming into my head. And then I kind of wove my own.
Yeah.
And it works. And so I'm not going to mess with it if it works.
Yeah, don't fix the wheel if it's not broken.
Right? Because I started around book 3. People were like, wow, this works. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to learn how to plan and plot out. I think that's my biggest.
I don't think you do, because I think that there's a value in organic. I think that there's just as much value at the table for a plotter as there is for a pantser. And while I say I write to my own beat sheet, it's because I don't like to break up my couple. So after books 1 and 2, I stopped letting my couple break up. I have external factors. But I think that if you can, I mean, Beverly Jenkins is a pantser.
Yeah.
So if that is your method of how your brain works, why force it into a different model?
Yeah, my brain is 1,000 puzzle pieces, and there's always seems to be one missing when I'm, because that's just
the
the way
corners, right?
Yes,
the corners are always missing.
Corners are always missing. So it makes it difficult. It makes it interesting. I will be the first to say it does make it interesting, because oftentimes what I wind up with 3 or 4 ideas on the go at the same time, and it's like, okay, where, so I have things color coordinated. I have things that, oh, well, the Scottish is going to be over here. That's going to be green, and the Roman stuff, oh, well, that's purple. And over here we've got the, the Regency over here, which is going to be, yellow. Because yeah, my muse decided to give me Regency series idea last night.
But you say you're not a planner. That sounds very plannery to me.
So it's like, but I just have a crazy muse. That's all.
It's okay. Mine's a little off.
But I love the process. I love everything about it. I love the fact that I have a critique partner that calls me on mistakes. Well, she's also my editor. I love her to pieces. When we sit down to do critiques, we're not doing critiques where it's a light read and, oh, well, this could, you might want to change this, or you might want to change this. It's like, okay, well, this sentence structure, you've got the reaction before the action, you've got sequence. Oh, well, you've got continental issue right here. This is, you have built nothing up, and all of a sudden now she's sobbing uncontrollably, and you haven't given her any there's nothing to cry about at this point. So we need to have, and the fact that she is, she gets my crazy brain is absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that she's not a yes person. I cannot say how frustrating that is when you are working with people that are just, yep. Oh, this is great. Because it really is detrimental to your ability to develop your voice and your style and your skills. If everyone is telling you it's always good, it's good, then you don't learn anything, I don't think. Now, do you ever let family critique or beta read for you or arc read for you at all?
No. But then my family would tear it to pieces. It's not just not finding, it's finding the right critique and it's finding the right people that you're comfortable working with, who will not yes you, but will not tear you down. Because I've had both extremes. I've had, this is amazing, which is rare for me. That was like 1%. And I've had, I hate your writing and you should never write again, which is not helpful.
No, you want that medium. You want the happy medium where it's like, okay, well, this is good, but you could improve it by doing this.
You need constructive, and you need someone who has strengths that complement yours, that your strengths can fill in their weaknesses and vice versa.
Yes, yes, which is, I lucked out. I really did with my with Carolyn, because we just work. And so it, yeah, finding them is a rarity. And I've been in some critique groups where it's just been like, oh my God, I need to get out of it, because it's one or two people who are getting their work done, critiqued all the time, and everybody else is doing the critiquing, but they never get their work done. They never get their work critiqued, because it's the top two that are, or three or four in the group that are doing everything. So I think it's really important to know that as well, to set your limits and set your goals in regards to that too. My cat is behind me eating her dinner. So this has been an absolutely lovely chat. And it is, well, it's quarter after 10 my time, so it's 8:15 your time.
And we've both been at work all day.
Yes,
and Tiny Editor went to bed a long time ago.
Yes, I am looking forward to washing the war paint off my face.
There you go.
And thank you so very much for taking the time out. I've absolutely adored our chats. We need to do this more often. We need to sit and have, I mean, granted, we are on opposite sides of the land mass, so to speak, but we definitely need to do this more often.
We do, and we can work around your twice a month sessions. And it's always nice when you know other people who can bring teaching points or different points of view to the conversation. So
it is. I will, I would love to have you, and I know we might have to work around your schedule, but I'd love to have you on Writing Women. Your insights would be absolutely phenomenal. I should just bring you. We're going to get you on one of these episodes. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I will have all of Luna's links in the description box. By all means, check out her books, check out her website and her newsletter, sign up, join her groups. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so very much, Luna, for joining me this evening for our chat. It has been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, we definitely need to do this again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Don't run away on me.